Chapter 51 S.Ranked Bounty Mission, Spotting Kakazu. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Notes. The land of rice fields was the first name of the Land of Sound, a neighboring country of the Land of Fire and relatively new in the political scene. The Konoha ninjas settled in the Fire Temple, and far from them, in the underground bounty station of the Land of Rice Fields, Kakazu, a rogue ninja, was collecting the pay after completing a bounty mission. Right now, he was busy counting the bills in front of a cashier. For him, listening to the crisp banknotes was a melodious sound, but the moment of delight did not affect his sharp eyes. Amid the counting, his movement paused. He took out a note from the bundle and instructed the staff member next to him, "This is a bit old, change it." "Yes, Kakazu-sama." The staff member hastily replaced it with a new note. At this moment, the person in charge of this bounty station came out from behind and cautiously whispered to Kakazu, "Kakazu-sama, a piece of news just came in, an S.Ranked mission has been issued." Kakazu's eyes sparkled with excitement. An S.Ranked mission meant a big score. He asked, "How much?" 15 million ryo. Putting his money into a suitcase, Kakazu shut it carefully and said, "Give me the mission." The person in charge looked to be in a dilemma. He replied in a low voice, "This is a top-secret mission. If you see it, you have no choice but to accept it. Moreover, the employer has specific demands, one of which being each bounty station can only assign one person to take the mission." Kakazu waved his hand and said, "I'll take it. You know my strength, I'll be able to handle it." The person in charge nodded and took out a mission sheet. He handed it over to Kakazu along with the relevant details. The assassination target is Fire Temple's Master Chigo. The employer has a time requirement as well. The target must be assassinated only when he is leaving the Hot Water Temple. Most importantly, you must not let him enter the Land of Fire. The information confused Kakazu and he rechecked, "Is it just killing a monk?" The person in charge nodded and said, "Yes, the monk himself must not be difficult to handle, but there's a possibility there will be ninjas protecting him." After getting the confirmation, Kakazu took the mission sheet with satisfaction. 15 million is enough. It just so happens there are two small fries in the Land of Hot Water as well. I can take care of them together on the way. 5 days later, Namikaze Minato and his party arrived at the Rose Street of Hot Water Temple with Chigo. They hadn't faced any obstacles, making the journey smooth. The temple was built on the top of a hill not far from Rose Street. At this moment, the street was bustling with different activities. Buddhist believers came from various regions to watch the debate. Seeing Chigo, they kowtowed on both sides of the street, their faces filled with devotion. This place was Land of Hot Water's inner region, making it practically a danger-free zone. Therefore, Minato let Chigo walk up front and walked behind along with Uchiha Tonen and Hatake Kakashi. Every few steps, Chigo would stop and return the believers' greetings. Only after they arrived at the foot of the Hot Water Temple's hill, they were able to shake off the fanatical followers. Minato wiped the sweat from his forehead and remarked with a bright smile, "Master Chigo is very popular." Tonen nodded. Looking at Chigo's back, he muttered, "Is this what it means to be a virtuous eminent monk? All these believers must acknowledge Master Chigo from the bottom of their hearts." Hearing this, Chigo calmly replied, "It's not me but Buddha that they acknowledge. Looks like becoming a Buddha is also not a bad idea." Tonen's yearning resurfaced, and as soon as that happened, Chigo, who was walking ahead, frowned. He senses the pure evil desire even more vividly. Glancing at Tonen, he casually asked, "Young fellow, have you ever put any thought on the kind of person you want to become?" Tonen adjusted his glasses and thought for a bit. He then replied, "Before my father passed away, he once instructed me to become a pure, virtuous person, who was free from vulgar fascinations." Minato smiled and rubbed Tonen's head. "I believe in you, you can absolutely do it." Chigo was confused hearing Tonen's answer. His ability to sense Tonan's desires came from a spiritual perception called the heart.eye. While this was acquired by practicing Buddhism, what he perceived couldn't be said to be completely accurate. You should often read the Buddhist scripture I gave you. And if you feel like you're lost one day, you can come to the fire temple and meet me. By now, the group had arrived at the hilltop. They saw the hot water temple monk standing there, welcoming Chigo with folded hands. The temple head, Eshu, took the initiative to respectfully greet, "Welcome, Master Chigo." "Greetings, Master Eshu. We'll hold the Buddhist debate tomorrow. Master Chigo, please rest in the temple tonight." "Excellent." At night, Tonan and Kakashi took turns to guard Chigo. Kakashi took the first half, and Tonan guarded in the second. The crescent moon was like a small boat anchored among the few and scattered branches. In the monastery room, sitting cross-legged in front of a Buddha statue, Chigo was meditating. Outside his door, Tonan sat perfectly still. He was secretly controlling the white pigeons to monitor the area. In this world, one must never relax vigilance at any time. The pigeons lurking in various places activated Sharingan. Under the Byakugan's perception boost, the entire Rose Street was in Tonan's full view. He could distinctly see the chakra coursing through many people. Most of these ought to be the Land of Hot Water's ninjas, who especially came to maintain order. Suddenly, a figure captured by a white pigeon entered Tonan's vision. This amount of chakra. That's... Tonan activated his 3 Tomo and used Mirror Heaven and Earth Change with full power, continuously narrowing the field of vision. A person's figure appeared in his eyes, enlarging until it became clearer. At this very moment, Kakazu, who was resting in an inn, felt like someone was peeking at him. He got up from the bed and looked out of the window but only saw an empty street. There was nothing. Was that my misperception? Kakazu muttered to himself. He could no longer perceive that feeling, so he went back to sleep but decided to be more alert. The moment Kakazu had gotten up, a white pigeon on the roof had already spread its wings and flown away. That guy is so sharp. Why is he here? It cannot be for me, there's no bounty on my head. Tonan quietly deactivated the Sharingan. Creak at that moment, the door behind Tonan opened, shining a dim light on him. Tonan turned and saw Chigo looking at him with a solemn expression. Earlier, when Tonan had activated the Sharingan, Chigo felt an extremely evil power. "Master Chigo, you haven't slept yet," Tonan inquired with a gentle look. Chigo remained silent for a while. He walked over and sat down. Looking at the desolate crescent moon, he solemnly said, "I felt an evil aura just now." Bvec Tonan moved his gaze away from Chigo. He also looked at the night sky and muttered, "It was from me, right?" Chigo nodded and replied in a low voice, "Since you're a ninja, I shouldn't worry myself. But I'm a monk after all. It's my job to deliver all living beings from suffering." The chilly moonlight illuminated Tonan's calm face. After a long silence, he slowly opened his mouth and asked, "Are you trying to convert me, Master Chigo?" Chapter 52. Talking all night, trick successfully. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chigo shook his head and stared at Uchiha Tonan with a deep gaze. He finally said, "Ordinary people may not be able to see through you, but I can see the evil under your hypocritical mask. You were right. You're very pure, so pure that I've no confidence in converting you." Tonan looked at the night sky and took a deep breath, closing his eyes. With a slight smile on his face, he asked, "Master, do you think tonight is a good night to kill people? Do you want to silence me to protect your secret? Do you think I won't?" "You won't. Why not?" "Because you want to keep this hypocritical mask while you're still young and weak." Shaking his head, Tonan laughed and looked straight at Chigo's eyes. He pointedly asked, "Is good or evil judged by thoughts or by actions?" Well, Chigo frowned and started to think. Tonan continued his question, "Kind-hearted, but hands stained with blood. Evil-minded, but helping others do good deeds. Among these two kinds of people, who's good and who's evil? Chigo remained silent for a long time before he sighed and said, if you're the latter, then I believe you're a good person. Will you tell me your story? I'm curious why your heart is so dark. Tonen lowered his head and began speaking in a deep tone. It all started when I was still at the Ninja Academy. With Tonen's narrative, time passed by quickly. The more Chigo listened, the more immersed he became. Sometimes, he frowned, and sometimes, he found it unbearable. In the end, he sighed and sadly said, it's truly been too cruel on you. Tonen merely gave a wry smile. He looked at the brightening horizon and said in a daze, the moment I killed Mina with my own hands, I fell into a dark abyss. But if I hadn't done that, would I not be letting the dead Cheerio down? How can I be worthy of the will of fire that I've always adhered to? Chigo looked at Tonen's small body and comforted, ill-fated relationship is hard to undo, it's not your fault. He reached out his hand to gently pat the young boy's shoulder but Tonen slapped it away, and roared while trembling, since I'm not wrong, why do people always give me the cold shoulder? Just like you, master, everyone, everywhere is guarded against me. Chigo was stunned for a moment. He said, looking remorseful, it's because I didn't practice Buddhism well enough. Tonen took a deep breath and waved his hand. He said, I apologize, I was unable to control my emotions. In fact, I've been reading the Buddhist scripture you gave me. Seeing Tonen restrain his emotions, Chigo felt guiltier. He gently asked, did it help you? Tonen shook his head and replied, it didn't help. I just learned what Buddha is. Chigo was amused despite himself. He didn't believe that the 6-year-old boy could comprehend the difficult age-old question of what is Buddha, by just reading an ordinary scripture. But he still curiously asked, will you tell me what is Buddha in your heart? Tonen looked devout as he said, Buddha is the symbol of wisdom and enlightenment. Your perception is very unique. Chigo nodded, not commenting on whether this way of thinking was correct or incorrect. Tonen struck while the iron was hot, I read a sentence in the scripture, drop one's cleaver and become a Buddha. Chigo smiled and explained, legend has it that Master Seigen, a great eminent monk in ancient times, said these words and also instructed later generations to spread it widely. According to rumors, Master Seigen was closest to Buddha himself. Throughout the ages, many monks wanted to comprehend the arcane truth of this sentence, but they gained nothing. No matter how you think about it, it seems illogical. Tonen nodded and said, this sentence is a fallacy in itself. It's used to deceive people. Chigo retracted his smile and pretended to be stern, child, you shouldn't slander the great ancestor. How could this sentence be a fallacy? It's just that we are not proficient enough in Buddhist doctrine, and we can't fully comprehend it yet. Tonen shook his head and argued in earnest, the reason why this sentence was spread widely was to give a person holding a cleaver a reason to lay it down. It was to save people under the cleaver. If someone had already killed many people, he might feel his sin was beyond forgiveness. And he may continue to go down the wrong way. But if he recalled this sentence when he's going to kill the next person, he just might stop. This was Master Seigen's wisdom. Tonen's perspective stunned Chigo and he fell into deep thought. But after thinking for a while, he noticed a glitch and asked Tonen, your argument made sense, but monks can't deceive anyone, otherwise, they'll go to hell. Master Seigen was the first-generation monk, who set the rules. How could he deliberately violate them? So this point doesn't make sense after all. This must be Master Seigen's enlightenment. Tonen stood up, and facing the rising sun on the horizon, he spread his hands as if he was trying to embrace the light. If I don't go to hell, who will? Chigo's scalp tingled, and as if he had gone insane and was raving, he muttered to himself, if I don't go to hell, who will? Wisdom, enlightenment, become a Buddha. Facing the first rays of the morning sun, the corners of Tonen's mouth gradually rose, and he softly said, this world is very simple. But when the heart is in chaos, we'll not be able to see it. Heaven gave us eyes and ears. Why do we still neglect the root and pursue the tip? Chigo hastily nodded and closed his heart-eye. The evil aura that was lingering in his heart immediately vanished. The first rays of sunlight were dazzling. But it was soft in Chigo's eyes because Tonen was blocking it. Night and day coexist. When one side of the world falls into darkness, the other must be luminous. It's dawn. Ding. Gained Chigo's acknowledgement. Tonen heard the system prompt and slightly slanted his head. He smiled gently as the sun lit up his face, making him look youthful and bright. Good morning, Master Chigo. With that greeting, Tonen left, leaving behind Chigo, sitting alone in the same spot. After a long time, the old monk slowly regained his senses and let out a long sigh. He got up and walked into his monastery room while continuously chanting. Wisdom, enlightenment, become a Buddha. If I don't go to hell, who will? After returning to his room, Tonen sighed in relief and a smile of success played on his face. He had invested so much time and effort to trick Chigo because when he had activated the Sharingan, with his Byakugan ability, he saw profound chakra inside the monastery room. He then recalled Chiriku, a ninja monk from the Fire Temple's 12 Guardian Ninja team who was able to send Kakazu flying in the anime story from his previous life. How was Tonen to know that Chigo, who seemed to have a foot in the grave, was actually a big shot? At first, Tonen just wanted to stabilize his relationship with him, deeply worried that Chigo may just kill him regardless of the consequences. However, later, he discovered he was able to fool him with just some fancy words. Therefore, he simply put more effort into it and took advantage of the time when Chigo's mind was in chaos to trick him to shut his heart-eye and gain his acknowledgement in one fell swoop. Now that he had a big fish like Chigo in his pocket, he didn't need to worry about small fry like Kakazu. Moreover, he gained his acknowledgement. So far, this mission brought him great tidings. Chapter 53. A sincere gift. Facing midway attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Notes. Iwagakure is the hidden village of the Land of Earth, one of the 5 great shinobi countries. Koona, Kiri, Kumo, Iwa, Suna are also known as Leaf, Mist, Cloud, Rock, Sand Rogue. Nin, criminals in effect, are ninja who abandoned their villages. The Buddhist doctrine debate progressed smoothly. When Chigo talked about his understanding of Buddha, the onlookers felt his words were astounding. Despite not truly comprehending them, these words were the arcane truth in the ears of the monks and Buddhist believers. The debate conference concluded in the evening. Chigo stayed for 2 more days under the enthusiastic request of the hot water temple monks before leaving for Konoha. In these past few days, Uchiha Tonen regularly observed Kakazu's movements. Kakazu stayed calm and seldom left the inn. It was as if he was awaiting something. Given the circumstances, it was obvious that it was for them to leave the temple. As time passed by, Tonen discovered several more Jonin-leveled rogue. Nin. These people too became his observation targets. The group traveled down from the hilltop where the hot water temple was located. When they reached Rose Street, Tonen suddenly asked, "May I take some time to buy something, please? Will you all wait for me?" Well, Namikaze Minato awkwardly looked at Chigo. Since they were in the midst of a mission, they would need their employer's approval to do any personal work. Chigo kindly smiled at Tonen and said, "Go on, we'll wait here for you." "Thank you so much, Master Chigo." Tonen came to a gift store on the street and began exploring. Today was February 1st. It would take about 5 days to escort Chigo back to the Fire Temple, and 2 more days to return to the village. In other words, if there was not much delay on the road, they would reach the village on February 8th. That would be just in time for Sarutobi Hiruzen's birthday. Tonen had written in his diary that he wanted to give him a birthday present. And the most important aspect of an upright person was to be true to his words. When buying a gift for elders, one needed to pay attention to certain aspects. The gift must display sincerity and move the receiver's heart. The second part depended on whether the gift was usable or not, but the first depended on whether it was expensive or not. Expensive of course meant much higher priced compared to similar gifts. Tonen walked to the counter and asked politely, "Excuse me, do you sell tobacco here? The kind that is used in a smoking pipe?" The shopkeeper nodded and said, "You mean tobacco shreds, right? We do keep it. Do you want to give it to someone?" "Yes, I want to give it to my grandpa as a gift." What a filial child. Come, this is." Even before the shop owner could say anything further, Tonen waved his hand and said, "I don't need to see it all. I just want the most expensive one that can't be bought in the land of fire." The shopkeeper was momentarily taken aback. He glanced at Tonen's ninja headband and immediately plastered a flattering smile. He took out a box of tobacco shreds from the top shelf. "This is what you want. It costs 16,000 Rio, thank you for the patronage. Do you want to pack it?" Tonen nodded and said, "Yes, I will give you an extra grand. Use the most luxurious packaging box to wrap it. More importantly though, please give me a receipt of 66,000 Rio." "Excuse me." The shopkeeper was dumbfounded once again, and this time he didn't respond for a while. "You can't do it." "I can. Pack the receipt together in the box." Tonen cheerily paid the money. He took out a small scroll from his ninja bag and sealed the gift box inside. Ordinary tobacco shreds cost only about 100 Rio, and the tobacco shreds Hiruzen smoked cost about 500 Rio. Tonen could already imagine the shocked expression on Hiruzen's face when he received the gift. Minato's party was crossing a dense forest. The closer they reached the land of fire's border, the taller were the trees. At this moment it was almost dusk. The forest was already filling up with mist, and everyone could smell the moist and cold fragrance in the air. With every step, the soil below would slightly sink. It was clear there was a light rain here not long ago. They would encounter puddles occasionally, on and off seeing their reflections passing through in them. Swish suddenly, several kunai flew out from the surrounding forest. "Watch out! Enemy attack!" Minato was the first to react. With a few kunai, he took point in front of Chigo and knocked the incoming attacks one after another. Hatake Kakashi and Tonen were also on guard and surrounded Chigo. Minato looked solemn at this moment. His ears moved slightly like he picked on some noise, and he flung 3 more kunai towards the rear. Dang, the kunai pierced deeply into the tree trunk and 3 ninjas, who were standing on the branches, had already jumped away. One of them was a rogue. Nin wearing Kumo's forehead protector. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and yelled, "Konoha's ninja team, we just want this old man's life. If you are sensible, you'll get lost now." These were the rogue. Nin of Cloud, Mist, and Rock. I wonder if Minato can handle them. At this moment, Tonen had already activated his Sharingan, pretending to be serious. "Looks like you don't agree." A grin appeared on the Cloud rogue. Nin's face. He said to the other 2 beside him, "Leave this yellow-haired Jonin boy to me. You 2 take care of the rest. But don't even think about monopolizing the bounty for yourselves." The Rock rogue. Nin also had a violent temper. He shouted back, "Why are you speaking so much nonsense? Just kill them all. Earth style, mobile core." Rumble Tonen and the others noticed the change below their feet and deftly jumped away. The place where they were standing just a moment ago completely sunk in, becoming a bottomless pit. Minato took out a kunai and said, "Kakashi, Tonen, take Master Chigo to a safe place. Leave these people to me." Tonen nodded, carried Chigo on his back, and took off along with Kakashi. Just when the Rock and Mist rogue. Nin wanted to chase after them, Minato suddenly appeared on the tree and ruthlessly thrust his kunai towards the Rock rogue. Nin. Such speed, what's this ninjutsu? The Rock rogue. Nin's pupils shrunk. Minato's pace shocked him, but he used a kunai to block the attack. Minato was patient enough to not make follow-up attacks seeing this one was blocked. In the next moment, he disappeared and appeared behind Cloud Rogue. Nin. Damn it, you're underestimating us. The Cloud Rogue. Nin shouted as he punched Minato with his right fist covered in electricity. Bang! The tree was smashed into smithereens. However, just when his fist was about to make contact, Minato vanished and appeared on the other side and accurately threw specially made kunai all around the battlefield. Whenever he was about to be hit, or whenever someone wanted to chase after Tonen and the others, Minato would immediately repeat this attack format. The three of them had no choice but to fight against him. Not long after, Minato noticed a flaw in the Mist Rogue. Nin. He instantly used the Flying Thunder God technique to appear behind him and kicked him away. Bang! Water splashed everywhere. It's a water clone. Minato was alarmed, but he thought that by now the others would have put some distance between them. I can only get rid of these two right now. I'll have to believe that Kakashi and Tonen can stop the Mist Rogue. Nin. Chapter 54. Silent Killing, Face Off with a Rogue. Nin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Notes. Itachi, nearly as popular as the katana, is a traditionally made Japanese sword, used by the samurai class of feudal Japan at this moment. Uchiha Tonen, carrying Chigo on his back, and Hatake Kakashi were running furiously. If they could continue for another half hour, they would reach a small town at the Land of Fire's border. Leaf ninjas were permanently stationed at this junction. While running, Tonen noticed a puddle of water ahead of them. Its chakra was too conspicuous to his eyes. Just when they passed it, a figure jumped out and swung his tachi at Chigo. Just as that blade was about to strike his neck, Kakashi reacted quickly. He drew out his tanto, blocked the blade, and shouted, "Leave quickly." He began to fight the attacker. Although Tonen was aware that a trifling rogue ninja couldn't kill Chigo even in the wildest imagination, he secretly thought it was a pity. He ran quickly without looking back. "Tonen, aren't you worried about your companion?" Chigo, who was still on Tonen's back, calmly asked. Tonen was silent for a while and replied, "Kakashi is very strong. He'll definitely beat the enemy. Even if Kakashi truly died, Tonen would just make a wooden sculpture of him, and pray daily." Chigo nodded and smiled slightly. "You must be stronger. After all, you've awakened the 3 Tomo Sharingan. In fact, sometimes, you don't need to hide your inadequacy." Tonen's heart thumped, but he replied without batting an eyelid, "Kakashi is strong." Chigo muttered, "In that case, why are you thinking of sticking out for your companion?" The two people moved forward in this fashion for about 10 minutes, and the surrounding mist gradually became denser. Tonen saw the Mist Rogue. Nin, who was waiting ahead through the eyes of a nearby white pigeon. At this moment, Tonen had no intention to pretend in front of Chigo. The old monk had already seen through him. Even if he continued the charade, he would only make a joke of himself like a clown. He stopped and placed Chigo on a rock. "Master Chigo, rest here for now." Chigo nodded and said with a smile, "You've worked hard." When Tonen got up, the mist around had already become so dense that it turned milky white. Silent Killing Technique. The 3 Tomo in Tonen's eyes spun as he looked straight ahead. "I love killing Uchihas. The 3 Tomo Sharingan. That's commendable, but too bad it's useless against the dense mist. I'll personally gouge out your eyes and drink your blood." In the thickening mist that significantly impaired visual ability, the Mist Rogue. Nin wanted to break Tonen's fighting spirit with daunting words. As he continued his claptrap, he didn't realize that each of his moves was under Tonen's scrutiny. He very much resembled a clown. "Guess where I am?" Swish. Tonen bent to one side, dodging a blade swung towards him from behind. At the same time, he looked at the rogue cloud ninja behind, who looked slightly surprised. "You're very lucky, you actually dodged it." The Mist Rogue. Nin gave a ruthless smile and disappeared in the dense mist that was equivalent to his perception range. He could observe every enemy move within this mist. The ambience was silent, and the damp moisture continuously blew against Tonan's skin, disturbing his senses. The rogue Nin seemed to have turned into a beast in the dark forest, coldly eyeing its prey. Such a situation would get the better of ordinary people, as they would rack their brains on where the next sudden attack could come from. It wouldn't take long for their spirit to collapse. However, for Tonan, who had the Byakugan, all this was ineffective. He quietly stood in the same place, waiting for the real prey to take the bait. As time passed by, Tonan's endurance surprised the rogue Nin. He decided to not wait any longer and attack. The moment he swung his long blade though, Tonan turned around and raised a kunai. Ding! The kunai easily blocked the tachi. In front of my eyes, you've nowhere to hide. The rogue Nin's eyes shrunk and he distinctly saw a pair of slowly spinning Sharingan amid the dense mist. Since this attack failed, he retreated, and asked with an ugly expression, "How did you predict my attack?" The mist rogue Nin noticed the surrounding mist was denser than before. Worse still, his perception ability was abruptly cut off. Just then, Tonan's indifferent voice resounded in the dense mist. Silent killing technique. At this moment it was clear who was the hunter and who was the prey. Guess where I am? A sharp kunai made an arc. The mist rogue Nin subconsciously dodged, but his arm was still cut. That brat actually injured me. How can he use silent killing technique? Is this the Sharingan's copy ability? A sudden realization came to his mind. No. When I used the technique, that brat didn't see it. Also, Uchihas don't have a water attribute chakra. That means, the rogue Nin grinned hideously, and a pallid light flashed through his eyes. The Sharingan's illusion is truly powerful. But it also depends on who's using it. The rogue Nin rapidly circulated the chakra within his body. Genjutsu, dispel. The next moment, the mist's concentration reduced a little, and his sense of perception resumed. The wound on his arm also disappeared. Sure enough. It must have happened when I looked at his eyes just now. At that moment, Kakashi, who had been fighting against the water clone on the other side, slashed it. The clone immediately turned into water. Kakashi's eyes shrunk, and his complexion became ugly. He rushed towards the direction where Tonan had taken off. You better be fine. I was careless just a moment ago and got caught in a genjutsu. The mist rogue Nin frowned as he sensed the disappearance of his water clone. I can't waste any more time. I must finish this mission now. Immediately afterward, he used water clone technique. You've completely pissed me off now. The mist rogue Nin emerged from the puddle below Tonan, who looked at it and instantly finished making hand seals. When just half of his head had come out, Tonan's legs slightly moved. Lightning style, ground travel. An electric current instantly spread around from the bottom of his feet. Bang! The rogue Nin's body turned into a water splash. Tonan smiled, water clone. At this moment, the rogue Nin's real body had quietly appeared behind Chigo, who was chanting scriptures with his eyes closed. I'll take care of you first, then go to kill that brat. The blade in his hand slashed Chigo's neck. Bang! What? How can it be a water clone? The mist rogue Nin was confused. He was certain that the old monk had been sitting there from the very beginning. He had sensed it from his perception ability. What's going on here? Where did that old man go? Chapter 55. Chigo taking action, mission accomplished. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Notes. Taki, a village hidden by a waterfall, is located in an unnamed country. Senjutsu, sage techniques, is a specialized field of jutsu that uses natural energy after a failed attack. The mist rogue Nin noticed his perception ability was cut off again. A cold chill ran down his spine, and he exclaimed in disbelief, "No, this isn't my technique." Tapping on his back, a finger slowly appeared. Poochie crackle, crackle, Crackle the mist rogue. Nin lowered his head with difficulty and saw lightning was flickering in his chest. Sorry, this is my technique. Uchiha Tonen's cold voice came from behind. Thump everything in front of the mist rogue. Nin became dark, and his corpse heavily fell in the water. The mist dissipated, and Tonen jumped and carried Chigo who was sitting cross-legged on a branch. Kakashi arrived just then. Tonen, are you alright? Tonen looked at a breathless Kakashi and adjusted his glasses. We are fine, this rogue. Nin was a little weak and he underestimated my eyes. Is that right? Kakashi looked down at the enemy's corpse but had some doubts. He had faced Tonen's genjutsu in the past. Was it this strong? Looking at his teammate, Tonen's eyes slightly moved. He took out a pill from his ninja bag and gave it to Kakashi. For you, it's very delicious, eat it. Alright. Although Kakashi didn't understand why he had to eat this now, he still did so given his trust in Tonen. It tasted sour and sweet and was crispy. Soon after, they spotted Namikaze Minato not far away. Minato jumped on a few branches and landed in front of the three of them. Seeing them uninjured, he sighed in relief. Fortunately, you're all fine. Tonen narrowed his eyes and said, Uzumaki-sensei, did you take care of that rogue? Nin? Kakashi frowned a little. Minato nodded and looked at Chigo on Tonen's back. They are already dealt with. Let's take Master Chigo away from here right now. Just when Minato wanted to approach Tonen, the surrounding mist suddenly thickened again, engulfing everyone. There are more attackers. Amid the dense mist, Tonen shouted. Minato frowned, and immediately charged towards the voice. A ball of black fluid came out from his body and surprise attacked Tonen and Chigo. Simultaneously, his appearance also changed from Minato to Kakazu. Bang! Water splashed on the ground. Water clones. Damn it, that brat tricked me. Fury filled Kakazu's head, and he formed hand seals. Wind style, pressure damage. But even before Kakazu could release his ninjutsu, he realized something was awry with him. The accumulated experience from years of contract killing and bounty hunting made him instantly identify the reason. The mist was poisonous. Kakazu could barely wrap his mind around this when explosive tags buried under the ground began to activate. Crackle, crackle, crackle bang. In the forest, a miniature mushroom cloud rose leaving only the burning smell of smoke behind. Tonen had laid the explosive tags stealthily when he was fighting against the mist rogue. Nin. On the branch not far away, Kakashi glanced at the gentle-looking Tonen beside him with a strange look and said, "You prepared so much before leaving." Tonen adjusted his glasses and smiled slightly. Yes. The clan's ninja store was running a promotion. Buy 2 explosive tags and get a bottle of poison for free. I thought it was a good deal, so I bought 6 of them. Later, I found the poison had expired. I'll report them to the clan after returning. Just after Tonen finished speaking, Kakazu's roar came from the midst of the smoke and dust. You've truly infuriated me now. All of you die for me. Before the smoke completely dissipated, a ball of black matter suddenly rushed out and attacked Tonen's group of 3. They immediately jumped, narrowly dodging the danger. Kakashi's expression turned ugly as he said, "What the hell is he?" Even that didn't kill him. After landing on the ground, Chigo, who was on Tonen's back, patted his shoulder. He got off and explained. That's Earth Grudge Fear. You must be a Taki's traitor ninja, the famous bounty hunter, Kakazu. Chigo pushed Kakashi and Tonen behind him. You two, step aside. He's not someone you can deal with. Tonen grabbed Chigo's hand and said with a solemn look, Master Chigo, rest assured, you are our client. We will protect you even if we have to risk our lives. Chigo looked at Tonen and smiled. He said while shaking his head. You truly are intelligent. At this moment, the mist had dispersed. Kakazu got up staggering, and there was a ball of black matter with a doll mask next to him. Tonen knew his tactic just now had taken one of Kakazu's lives. Kakazu made hand signs rapidly. Fire style, searing migraine. A scorching hot column of flame shot towards the three. Chigo opened his eyes in anger, and an illusory golden thousand-armed bodhisattva appeared behind him. He gently raised his right palm and pushed it forward. Bang! The column of flame that was flying towards them extinguished. In addition, with the remaining power, Kakazu was sent flying dozens of meters away, breaking countless trees. Kakashi's jaw dropped seeing this. And a question appeared in his mind: is this the person we are protecting? After the smoke dissipated, Kakazu had disappeared without a trace. Chigo relaxed his posture and said lightly. All right, the assailant has been driven away. Tonen looked at Chigo with reverence. He put his hands on his knees and bowed. Thank you, Master Chigo. That move just now didn't resemble ninjutsu. Is it senjutsu? Or something else? At this moment, Tonen couldn't wait to inherit all of Chigo's abilities. However, considering the great difference in strength between them, he had to hold back this little ambition. Kakashi felt Chigo was powerful enough to not need their protection. He thought of Minato, who was still fighting, and couldn't help ask, are we going to help Minato? Sensei. Tonen pondered for a while, then shook his head. No, let's go to a town first. Minato. Sensei can easily escape if he can't defeat his opponents. We'll just be a burden if we go. He then took the initiative to carry Chigo on his back again and ran towards the town. Not long after, Minato got rid of the Cloud Rogue. Nin with some difficulty. He was worried that Tonen and Kakashi wouldn't be able to stop the Mist Rogue. Nin, so he exchanged a few moves with the remaining Rock Rogue. Nin and got away. As for that Rogue. Nin, after experiencing Minato's strength firsthand, he didn't dare chase after him. 5 days later, Minato's team safely escorted Chigo to the Fire Temple. Thank you all. After Chigo signed the mission sheet, he turned to Tonen. With a smile, he said, Tonen, if you become tired of the ninja life, you can consider coming to the Fire Temple. Tonen put his palm together and replied, thank you for your kind consideration, but my dream is to gain all villagers' acknowledgement, then use my life to protect them. I will never leave the village. That's all right. If your mind changes one day, you're welcome any time. Chapter 56. The Returning Prince, Health Checkup. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Notes. Sarutobi Shinosuke and Konoha's 8 colors appear to be completely made by Naruto fans at the underground bounty station. A group of trembling staff shrank in a corner. Didn't you say that Chigo was just an ordinary monk? Kakazu grabbed the person in charge's collar with a gloomy face. Not only did he fail this mission, but he also lost 2 lives. If he hadn't escaped quickly, this miscalculation would have turned fatal for him. Facing the furious bounty hunter, the trembling station boss said, Kakazu-sama, that's what the intelligence said. We investigated him as well and there was no record of him ever taking any action. Kakazu didn't let go and pursued, do you know that I almost died there? The person quickly replied, since this happened due to an error in the information, our bounty station will compensate you. Compensation. Kakazu snorted with disdain before asking, how much? In the Hokage residence, Namikaze Minato and his team reported the successful completion of the mission. Listening to the report and reading the Fire Temple's letter, Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded with satisfaction and said, you all did a very good job. Because you encountered 3 Jonin Rogue. Nin and the rumored bounty hunter, Kakazu, the Fire Temple has increased the reward to 600,000 Ryo. This mission is now promoted to A. rank. Considering Tonen and Kakashi's excellent performance, both will be promoted to Chunin as special cases. Tonen and Kakashi bowed to Hiruzen. Many thanks, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen put away the mission sheet and continued, the mission reward is recorded in your bankbook. Now, take some rest. Hereafter, you don't need to take any D.ranked missions. Seeing the official matter concluded, Tonen smiled. He then took out the gift he bought and placed it in front of Hiruzen. Hokage-sama, I got you something from Rose Street. Happy birthday. Contrary to expectations, Hiruzen didn't react as enthusiastically. He merely nodded towards Tonen and said with a smile, just the thought was enough. I'll leave it here, for now, and open it later tonight. He moved the gift to the side as he spoke. All right. Tonen nodded without any change in expression. At this time, a middle-aged ninja in high spirits walked into the office. Hokage-sama. The moment Hiruzen saw this person, a sincere smile appeared on his face. Shinosuke, you're back. Come in and meet them, they're Konoha's future pillars. Minato nodded at Sarutobi Shinosuke and said, Hello, Shinosuke-senpai, I'm Namikaze Minato. Hello. Shinosuke nodded with a smile and turned towards Tonen and Kakashi. These two are Konoha's famous geniuses, Hatake Kakashi and Uchiha Tonen. Hiruzen laughed and introduced them to Shinosuke. Shinosuke, as a senpai, you should look after them. These two young fellows just completed an A.ranked mission, and are promoted to Chunin. Especially Tonen, he killed a mist rogue. Nin. When Shinosuke heard this, an inexplicable emotion flashed in his eyes. Looking at Tonen, he said, truly admirable. Tonen adjusted his glasses, and replied with a smile, it's not worth mentioning. The opponent was careless and fell for my illusion. I haven't seen Shinosuke-senpai in the village before. Shinosuke reached out and patted Tonen's shoulder. I've been staying at the daimyo's. A few days ago, I applied for leave and came back to look around. Since I was here, I thought I could also find some outstanding ninjas and take them to the fire capital to help maintain order. Tonen quietly nodded his head. Minato finally opened his mouth at this time, Hokage-sama, we'll leave now. Hiruzen's eyes on Shinosuke didn't move and he casually waved his hand. Go on, O.org. Tonen bowed towards Hiruzen and turned to leave. No wonder Hiruzen's being so cold to me. His biological son's back. If I recall correctly, Shinosuke should be among the Konoha 8 colors. He has been staying with the daimyo all along. It seems Hiruzen intends to help his son ascend to a higher position. And here I was wondering why I never gained his acknowledgement. Looks like I was nothing more than a dog he wanted to gift to his biological son. Everything he has done so far was to domesticate me for the son in his heart. Tonen's steps didn't pause. But just before leaving the office, he glanced at the happily chatting father and son pair. The next day, in the Konoha hospital's corridor, Tonen pushed Sanwa Motoyoshi to the window to bask in the sun. Grandpa, rest here for a bit. I'll go get the medical report. All right. Motoyoshi waved his hand indifferently. Tonen came to the doctor's office and handed the token he received after completing the health checkup procedure. The doctor inspected it and took out a medical report from the drawer. Are you Sanwa Motoyoshi's relative? Yes, I'm his grandson. The doctor looked at various tests results in the report and explained, there's nothing wrong with your grandpa. It's just that, as a person ages, the bodily function inevitably declines. Tonen nodded and asked, does the decline in bodily function have any effects? It more or less affects the lifespan. Your grandpa is 70.1 this year. He's already advanced in age. Can he accompany me to adulthood? The doctor coughed and handed over the medical report to Tonen. How's that possible? In his condition, if he stayed happy, he can live for about 5 more years. But he has to rest more, and get enough sleep. Tonen looked at the medical report, and with a solemn look, he said in a low voice, Doctor, may I make a request? The doctor frowned and asked, what? Tonen continued, please don't tell my grandpa that he can live for only 5 more years. No matter how he asks you, please say he can live a long life. He wants to see me get married and have children. I know how he is. Once he learns his time is limited, he won't be able to stop thinking about it. The doctor appreciated Tonan's concern and nodded, we also understand this. It's a white lie after all. Don't worry, I won't tell him. Tonan bowed and thank you, doctor. He crumpled the medical report and threw it into the trash. Smiling brightly, he left the doctor's office. All right, Grandpa, let's go home. What took you so long? Where's the medical report? Tonan appeared like he was hiding something and said, the doctor said that there's no problem with your body, and you can live a long life. There's no need to take the report. This made Motoyoshi suspicious. Are you lying to me? Tonan smiled stiffly and replied, why would I lie to you? You just live to be 100 years old and hold your great-grandchildren. After speaking, he hastily pushed Motoyoshi away. In the corridor, the doctor, who had just come out of the office, saw this and couldn't help sighing in admiration, I haven't seen such a filial young fellow for a long time. Chapter 57 Tonan's Anomaly, a suspecting Motoyoshi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 57 Tonan's Anomaly, a suspecting Motoyoshi. After returning home, Uchiha Tonan began cooking passionately. In the past, he would make 2 or 3 dishes, but today, he was uncharacteristic. He prepared 8 dishes in one go. At the dinner table, Sanwo Motoyoshi's heart became restless seeing this. Why did you cook so much today? The 2 of us can't finish it. Tonan explained while serving Motoyoshi a bowl of rice. The doctor said that I should give you more food and replenish your nutrition. If you want to eat something specific, just tell me. I'll make it for you tomorrow. Motoyoshi shook his head and said, I'm not picky. Everything's delicious. He picked up the rice bowl and began eating. For some reason though, Motoyoshi lost his appetite today. The dishes he relished in the past turned tasteless in his mouth. After the meal, Tonan didn't go to Hatake Kakashi's house for training either. Instead, he chatted with Motoyoshi in the courtyard while watching flowers. In the past, Tonan used to listen to Motoyoshi talk about his glory days. Today, however, he was the one who kept chatting, as if he would never have the chance to say these words again. Later at night, Tonan took the initiative to wash Motoyoshi's feet and was at it for over 2 hours. Motoyoshi saw Tonan's dull eyes, and his hands that kept washing his legs repeatedly. A trace of melancholy appeared on his face. Unable to finally endure, he sighed, stop washing, child. If you continue, the remaining skin will be gone. Tonan nodded quietly and took the water away before helping Motoyoshi to the bed. Coo late at night, birds kept chirping outside the window. Motoyoshi tossed and turned on the bed. He couldn't fall asleep. He kept thinking about what was wrong with his body that made Tonan behave so odd today. If there was a cure, that child would have definitely admitted me to the hospital for treatment. Since he didn't, does that mean the issue with my body is incurable? I'm just a crippled old man. The way I dealt with hunger in the past, it would be a wonder if my health was good. But what's the problem? Motoyoshi kept fidgeting, thinking about several things. In the end, though, he tired out and gradually fell asleep. In the darkened room, snoring sounds began to resound. Just when Motoyoshi was about to enter deep sleep, he was awakened by a light sob. Moreover, this sound was coming from right beside him. Out of the instinctive reaction he developed since he was young, he immediately opened his eyes and turned to look over. He saw a dark figure sitting by his bedside. Motoyoshi recognized it was Tonan from the outline. He asked in confusion, Tonan, what are you doing here? Why didn't you go to sleep? Nothing. I couldn't sleep. I wanted to see you more. Tonan replied in a low voice. After a long time, Motoyoshi sighed and asked, tell me honestly, is something wrong with my body? Tonan shook his head vigorously and answered, there truly isn't. Don't think too much and sleep. I'll leave after watching you for a while. Fine. In the dark, Tonen stared at Motoyoshi quietly. Motoyoshi, who was feeling sleepy earlier, was no longer in the mood. He looked back at Tonen with a warm gaze. The next day, the sun had just risen. Motoyoshi sat in a wheelchair with dark circles under his eyes. He was being pushed around Konoha streets by Tonen as they strolled around. "Grandpa, look, that used to be my school. This school looks pretty good. Grandpa, look over there. Hokage-sama works there. Hokage residence is being renovated again. Grandpa, look, at noon, Tonen made another table full of dishes. Motoyoshi listlessly ate the food and asked in a tone full of vicissitude, Tonen, are you going to train with Kakashi this afternoon? Tonen shook his head and replied, I'm not going, I want to spend more time with you. Motoyoshi looked at Tonen with affection and said, you don't need to accompany me. Just go and train. I can hold on. Tonen hesitated for a while, then pursed his lips and agreed, all right. After the meal, he put a red envelope in Motoyoshi's coat pocket and worriedly said, Grandpa, if you've any problem, you must immediately call the neighbors. After calling them, hand over this envelope first. They'll be more attentive then. Motoyoshi patted Tonen's hand and nodded, you're just going for half a day. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Tonen nodded and reluctantly left. After about 10 minutes had passed, Motoyoshi shook his head, trying to forcibly lighten his mood. With a sense of determination, he pushed his wheelchair out of home and headed towards Konoha Hospital alone. After half an hour, Motoyoshi found the doctor's office they met yesterday. Doctor, I came for a health checkup yesterday. The doctor was surprised to see Motoyoshi alone. He looked around and discovered Tonen was not there. Therefore, he nodded and said, I remember you, you are Sanwa Motoyoshi, right? Motoyoshi nodded and said, yes, I came today to ask about my health condition. The doctor smiled, your health is very good. There's no illness. Rest assured. Motoyoshi did not believe this and asked again, so, how long can I live? The question caught the doctor off guard for a moment. Recalling what Tonen had said yesterday, he coughed lightly and said, according to my years of medical experience, you'll live 100 years without any problem. Motoyoshi, who was observing the doctor's expression, noticed the change. Really? Of course. I'm a doctor, I'm responsible for what I say. It's not a white lie, right? The doctor's smile stiffened and he weakly said, how can that be? Looking at the doctor's expression, the experienced Motoyoshi understood everything. He nodded and said, all right, that's good, thank you, doctor. After speaking, he pushed the wheelchair outside of the office. Behind him, the doctor shouted, eat whatever you want, stay in a good mood, and get enough sleep. This sentence made Motoyoshi even surer he didn't have long to live. After returning home, he took his chakra tanto hanging in the bedroom and gently stroked it. It seems I won't live long. No wonder Tonen has been so strange. I wonder when I'll die. Is it a year from now or 2? Or is it in a few months? I never thought death was already this close to me. It seems it's time to pass the Sanwa-style blade technique to Tonen. After that, I'll have no regrets. Chapter 58. Deteriorating Health, Re-Examination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At night, Sanwa Motoyoshi looked at a dazzling lineup of food and sighed, Tonen, when are you going to test your chakra attribute to see if you have the wind attribute? Uchiha Tonen raised his head, put the remaining rice of the bowl into his mouth, and said while chewing, I tested it. I just have the water, earth, fire, and lightning attributes, no wind attribute. Motoyoshi was stunned for a moment hearing this and asked again, are you certain? Tonen nodded, and while picking up the rice grains from his bowl with chopsticks, he stressed, I really don't have it. If you don't have it, then you don't have it. It can't be forced. Motoyoshi felt empty in his heart. He nodded and hesitatingly said, today, I went to meet the doctor. Tonen was dumbfounded for a moment. He raised his head slightly, and said without a change in expression, "What did he tell you?" Motoyoshi smiled warmly and replied, "Everything that should have been told." Tonen's expression became gloomy, and the chopsticks in his hand paused. He continued to quietly pick the rice grains. He had already finished the food in his bowl, but he didn't seem to realize it. Motoyoshi sighed inwardly and put on a smile. "There's no rice in the bowl, let me fill it for you." Tonen put down his chopsticks and wiped his mouth with a paper towel. His hand was trembling slightly. Without warning, he swept all the food on the table to the ground. His face was red, the veins on his neck bulged, and he was breathing heavily. Only after some time had passed, he composed himself and said in a calm tone, "I'll go find him and settle the account." Motoyoshi frowned and said in a deep voice, "Tonen, calm down." Tonen pursed his lips and squatted down. He covered his eyes with one hand, and his whole body was quivering. Motoyoshi's eyes were full of anguish. He pushed his wheelchair to Tonen's side and reached out his hand to gently stroke his head. He comforted, "Everyone has to die someday." Tonen shook his head frantically while sobbing, "It's all my fault, I'm an ominous person. I harmed you. If you didn't have me, then you would have been able to live a healthy life for a long, long time." Motoyoshi shook his head and replied, "It has nothing to do with you. If you weren't here, no one would even know if my corpse had rotted. In these last moments, just accompany me, all right?" Tonen nodded, and he seemed to suddenly remember something. He grabbed Motoyoshi's hand and said, "You won't die. I'll find a specialized doctor to examine you in a few days. Perhaps, that doctor was not skilled enough and made an error. When I met him, I felt he was not very reliable." Motoyoshi was reluctant. "There's no need, Tonen. Accept the reality, don't waste money." "No, he must be wrong." All right, he slipped up. "For now, though, it's enough as long as you stay with me." Over the next few days, Tonen was always with Motoyoshi. Every day, before dawn, he would push the old man on the wheelchair to look around the village. In the afternoon, he would chat with him in the courtyard. At night, he would sleep until midnight and then go to Motoyoshi's bedroom to quietly watch him. Motoyoshi's situation deteriorated at a rate visible to the naked eyes. Sometimes, he even seemed to hallucinate and his speech gradually became unclear. On this day, Tonen went to the Hokage residence to look for Sarutobi Hiruzen. Just as he entered the door, he saw Sarutobi Shinosuke sitting on Hiruzen's desk, chatting with him while drinking tea. Seeing Tonen walk in, Shinosuke hastily got off the desk and looked at him with a kind expression, "Tonen, how come you're here?" Tonen put his hands on his knees and bowed to Hiruzen, "Hokage-sama, there's something wrong with Grandpa Motoyoshi. I want to issue a mission. Please help me find a medical nin to examine him." "Is that so?" Cough cough, Hiruzen secretly winked at Shinosuke and the latter helped Tonen get up. As if he was the older brother next door, he said with concern, "Tonen, you won't need to issue a mission for this. I happen to know a top medical nin. How about we meet him now? I believe he'll definitely try his best if I request him." Tonen looked at Shinosuke's seemingly sincere eyes and nodded with a moved expression. "Thank you for helping me, Shinosuke-senpai. Let's leave, I'll take you to him." Shinosuke put his arms around Tonen's shoulder and led him out of the Hokage office. Hiruzen looked at the receding back of the two and took a deep breath. These tobacco shreds are truly good. Half an hour later, Shinosuke and Tonen found the medical nin, and Tonen accurately reported Motoyoshi's recent situation. The more he listened, the more the medical nin frowned and solemnly asked, "You're saying your grandpa's morale began to collapse after learning he has only 5 years to live?" Tonen nodded and answered, "Yes, Grandpa hoped to live until he could hold a great-grandchild. This news gave him a big blow. No matter what you discover later, please tell him that the last result was wrong, he has no health problems, and he can live a long life. Please." Tonin bowed deeply towards the medical ninja. The medical nin sighed and agreed, I understand, don't worry. In the courtyard, Motoyoshi was in the wheelchair basking in the sun and sleeping soundly. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door was roughly pushed open by Tonin. Motoyoshi was awakened with a start. He saw Tonin hastily come over while pulling a medical nin. Shinosuke stood outside the door and didn't go in to disturb. Grandpa, this is Konoha's famous medical nin. Motoyoshi glanced at the doctor, nodded, and said, we've troubled you. The medical nin nodded, and without wasting time, started to check Motoyoshi's condition. As time passed, he frowned more deeply. Seeing his expression, Motoyoshi weakly asked, Doctor, can I be saved? The medical nin retracted his hands and answered with a smile, what are you talking about? Your health's very good. According to my experience, you can easily live to 100 years. Motoyoshi paled at this reply and said with a forced smile, good, that's good. Thank you. Seeing the medical nin was preparing to leave, Tonin hastily followed, Doctor, I'll see you off. All right. Tonin left the courtyard with him. Chapter 59. Death with No Regrets, Visiting an Elder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Notes. Summoning. Impure world reincarnation is a jutsu that binds a deceased person's soul to a living vessel, restoring the dead as they were when alive to do the summoner's bidding. Kinjutsu, meaning forbidden techniques, are techniques that have been banned from being taught or used. After Uchiha Tonin walked out of the courtyard with the medical nin, Sarutobi Shinosuke, who was waiting outside, curiously asked, how's his condition? The medical nin signaled the two of them with his eyes. Tonin and Shinosuke took the hint and followed him to some distance along the street. Only after that, the medical nin stopped. Taking out a pen and paper to write the medical report, he said, his condition's serious. I estimate it's a psychological problem and it's severe enough to leave him only a few months to live. You've to be prepared. Tonin looked startled but slowly nodded. I understand. Shinosuke patted Tonin's shoulder lightly and said, I'll request Okage-sama to approve a leave for you. You should spend time with that grandpa. The medical nin sighed and asked, do you need me to give you a medical report? No need. I'll leave now. If I take too long, I'm afraid he'll notice. Tonin shook his head, bowed, and turned to leave. Just before he turned around, Sanwa Motoyoshi, who was observing from a distance, retracted his head and pushed the wheelchair back to the courtyard. Although he was unable to hear their conversation because of the distance, he could guess its gist from their actions and expressions. Motoyoshi had thoroughly given up hope now. It seems I truly can't live on. After a while, Tonin walked in with a smile. Grandpa, the doctor said you're in good health. I was panicking unnecessarily. I'll cook us a fine meal. Motoyoshi nodded with a smile and said, cook less. In any case, we can't finish it, don't tire yourself. Half a month later, lying in a bed in the Konoha hospital, Motoyoshi, who had become skin and bones, used all his willpower to open a small crack in his eyes. With his last gasp, he said, Child, I've put my will in the bedside cabinet. Don't be sad. Promise me you'll live happily. Tonin reached out and grabbed Motoyoshi's withered hand. He said with a calm look, you can rest assured, I'll inherit everything from you and live well. If you're tired, close your eyes and rest. Don't force yourself. Good child. Warm memories of the two of them getting along flashed through Motoyoshi's mind. Don't worry, Grandpa. I'll do my best to clean your house. Grandpa, were you a ninja in the past? Grandpa, I'm Uchiha Tonin. I'm not sure how to address you. An hour in the morning is worth 2 in the evening. I always like to get up early. After all, early birds get the insects. I want you to accompany me forever. After all, I'm an ill-fated person. There was some unwillingness in Motoyoshi's eyes as his eyelids slowly closed, and was replaced with a hint of a smile as he passed away peacefully. The medical device sounded an alarm. One of the hospital staff came in and stood behind Tonen, and comforted, "The patient's heart has stopped. My condolences, child. Your grandfather reached the end of his lifespan. I understand, please let me accompany him alone for a while." Tonen quietly sat beside the hospital bed. In the last few days, Motoyoshi wanted to commit suicide a few times. But Tonen was by his side and didn't give him a chance. This was because Tonen wanted to test something. He wanted to see how much power he would get from a person dying a natural death. Just now, a warm current surged in his body, slowly spreading through every nerve and muscle. As Tonen examined it, he noticed the chakra hardly increased and the spiritual power was not much either. But there were many ninja experiences and about a dozen new techniques including the Sanbo style, blade technique that he got. Although the effect is much worse than expected, it's not that bad. After all, to a certain extent, chakra just increases battle endurance. If chakra could decide everything, then wouldn't the people summoned by the impure world reincarnation be invincible? Of course, I do belong to an inadequate chakra group and I need to continuously take extra nourishment. In addition, if I can, I should start to think of ways to get high-powered ninjutsu. In any case, with the system in my hands, as long as I hunt diligently, I'll definitely not lack chakra. Returning to the key point here, though, this old fellow had some interesting things when he was young. Among them, there were quite a few techniques, whose practical value was no less than kenjutsu in Tonen's eyes. Not only the body flicker ninjutsu that was mastered by all Konoha jonin, but Motoyoshi had also mastered the shadow clone technique and the S.-ranked ninjutsu called reconstruction technique. The reconstruction technique was a kind of secret nin-taijutsu that could change one's height, appearance, and voice. But it took roughly 10 minutes to activate this technique and one couldn't just turn into another person. The advantage of this technique was that other people couldn't see through it. There would be no effect in battling as well. After reconstruction, as long as one didn't take the initiative to remove it, even Byakugan wouldn't be able to see through it. Tonen had now mastered the body flicker technique and the shadow clone technique. These two would help him comprehend the flicker clone technique. He believed that as long as he worked harder, he would be able to comprehend this profound meaning, greatly increasing his combat power. Soon, 2 days passed. Tonen found a scenic place to bury Motoyoshi. Following Motoyoshi's will, the land deed, money, and his chakra tanto all belonged to Tonen now. Once Motoyoshi's matter was settled, Tonen returned to the Uchiha district. The first thing he did after coming back was to visit the Great Elder, whom he had not seen for a while. In the Great Elder's living room, the two of them sat Seiza-style, facing each other. The Great Elder looked at Tonen, who had gotten a lot taller and was carrying the chakra tanto. He nodded with satisfaction. "It seems you miscalculated this time. That old man died too quickly." Tonen sipped the tea and calmly said, "That's all right. I managed to gain a lot." The Great Elder also picked up the teacup, nodded with a smile, and said, "That's also true. I heard that old man's name when I was still a genin. He was a famous miser, who just stayed in his house, never going out. However, now, all those assets belong to you. And this chakra blade is worth a lot as well." Tonen shook his head and commented, "These are just materialistic possessions. The biggest gain of this trip was Senior Motoyoshi's careful teaching." The Great Elder frowned. He honestly couldn't figure out what a commoner ninja could teach Tonen. He asked in confusion, "What could he possibly teach you?" Tonen smiled faintly and leisurely put down the teacup. He then slowly raised his right hand and pointed at a wall. The wind attribute chakra gradually condensed into a small ball at his fingertip and flew out. Puff, a compressed air bullet shot out from his finger and hit the wall, leaving a hole in its wake. In the next moment, a beam of light entered the room through the hole, shining on the Great Elder's face. This was B.-ranked No.seal ninjutsu mastered by Motoyoshi, wind style, air bullet. Tonen had also thought of imitating Rasengan and rotating it, but he failed. After all, the size of the air bullet was too small, and it was very difficult to control. The Great Elder didn't care about the damage to the wall. Instead, he got up with excitement, and carefully examined the hole. "This is, you have the wind attribute chakra." Tonen adjusted his glasses, and said with a veiled smile, "I tested it a while ago, and to my surprise, I'm fortunate enough to have all 5 chakra attributes." Chapter 60. Shelving the plan, A.Ranked mission. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Notes. The land of rivers is a country that borders between the land of wind and the land of fire. The land of rain is a small country that sits between land of earth, land of fire, land of wind. The Great Elder's beard trembled in excitement, and he returned to his seat looking ecstatic. "This is good, very good, you're truly an Uchiha genius. Sharingan innately has copy ability. But because most of the clan members are limited by chakra attributes, they can't display the full potential of this ability. You're different. You've all 5 attributes. As long as you have the time to grow, I believe you can even surpass Sarutobi Hiruzen, who is known as the Professor." Uchiha Tonen nodded with a smile. He picked up the teapot, and pouring tea into the Great Elder's cup, he said, "Oh, I almost forget to inform you. I was fortunate enough to be promoted to Chunin some time ago." The Great Elder calmed down and looked at the courteous Tonen. The more he saw, the more he increased Tonen's evaluation in his mind. Soon after, he laughed and said, "I know about this, but since you had chosen ninjutsu not long ago, I thought I should let you train those for some more time before letting you choose again. However, I didn't expect you to have all 5 attributes. Since that's the case, you can learn as many of the low-ranked ninjutsu the clan has, as you want. As for advanced compound ninjutsu, did you learn flicker clone technique?" Tonen shook his head and lightly answered, "I'm still studying it, but it won't be long before I succeed." The Great Elder nodded. "Don't be too impatient. After all, practicing the flicker clone technique is extremely strenuous. Though with your talent, I believe you'll be able to practice it successfully. I'd suggest don't learn any other superfluous advanced ninjutsu before you master it so you can conserve energy." Tonen smiled and said, "I'll comply with the Great Elder's suggestion." "Alright, wait for a bit." The Great Elder got up and walked into the storage room. After a while, he returned to his seat and handed a sealed scroll to Tonen. This scroll records all low-ranked ninjutsu in the clan, but other than lightning and fire style, the other attributed ninjutsu are relatively fewer. Tonen smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. This is already enough. By the way, Great Elder, there's one thing I wanted to ask you. I want to buy some property with beautiful landscape in the village and build a welfare home." "Welfare home?" The Great Elder frowned. Tonen nodded and explained, "The welfare home will include both orphanage and old-age home." The Great Elder thought for a while and realized Tonen's plan. Although he didn't think this method would work, he chose to respect Tonen's decision. "How big a place are you thinking?" "Let's begin with something as big as the Ninja Academy. We'll just expand it later if it's not large enough." When the Great Elder heard this, he frowned as if he was thinking about something. After a long time, he sighed deeply and said with an embarrassed look, "Tonen, you know that although I control the clan's finances, the other clan elders also review the monthly financial reports." Tonen shook his head and clarified, "I didn't intend to ask the clan to pay for it. I've inherited Senior Motoyoshi's properties and it's about 20 million ryo." After Tonen finished speaking, the Great Elder looked even more awkward. "Is that insufficient?" Tonen asked in confusion. The Great Elder nodded, "If it was 20 years ago, it would have been enough. But now, Konoha's land price is becoming much more expensive. Your money is not enough even to buy land in the suburbs. How much do I need then?" The Great Elder raised 2 fingers hearing his question and said, 200 million, and that's just to buy the land in the suburbs. Tonen inhaled a sharp breath and remained silent for a long time. He then stood up and bowed to the great elder. I understand. I'll return to train now. Farewell. At home, Tonen carved a wooden statue of Motoyoshi. He then came to a secret room and spread open the sealed scroll. While browsing through the ninjutsu, he mulled over his future course of action. Tonen wanted to build a welfare home to adopt Konoha's orphans and the lonely old people. This way, he could gain their acknowledgement and then, quietly harvest them in secret. He planned to harvest one batch after another in a steady cycle, just like crops. Orphans would replenish his chakra and spiritual energy, while the old people would provide him with various experiences and ninjutsu. He never expected Konoha's property price would reach such exaggerated levels that it would bring his plan to a grinding halt. The guaranteed minimum reward for an S-ranked mission was just 1 million ryo. With this as a benchmark, he calculated he needed to perform at least over 100 S-ranked missions to collect 200 million ryo. BDNV it looked like he had to shelve this plan for the time being. In the coming days, Tonen followed Namikaze Minato and Hitaki Kakashi to execute some ordinary C-ranked missions. Most of the time though, he either learned new ninjutsu or trained with Kakashi. Since he was in the golden age of physical development, his strength grew rapidly every day. As for to what extent he had reached, Tonen himself was not sure because he had no target to test his strength. After all, it was not wise to display his true strength in front of Kakashi and the others. It was also worth noting that Tonen would often encounter Sarutobi Shinosuke in various places by coincidence. Every time they met, Shinosuke taught him ninjutsu and inquired about his well-being. Tonen sensed Shinosuke was intentionally showing goodwill towards him, trying to draw him to his side. In addition, every time Tonen followed Minato to the Hokage residence to report mission completions, Hiruzen would mention Shinosuke by accident or by design. Konoha's considerate green sprout this and cherishes villagers that and so on. It was like introducing a blind date. That being the case, Tonen also didn't resist getting closer to Shinosuke. Hiruzen was after all still in power. But peaceful days were always short. On this day, Minato received an emergency alert, and his team gathered at the Hokage residence again. Hiruzen didn't take out the mission sheet but explained its content in a solemn tone. This is a sub-mission of an S-ranked mission, set to be A-ranked for the time being. Not long ago, there was a coup d'état in the land of rivers, which its daimyo suppressed. However, many participants in the coup were wandering ninjas. After the coup failed, they kidnapped Land of Rivers Princess Haruka and fled to the Land of Rain. The Land of Rivers daimyo was furious and issued an S-ranked rescue mission to Suna, AIM, IWA, and Konoha, all at the same time. Because of this, the nature of the mission also changed. Whichever village rescues Princess Haruka will prove its ability and success in completing missions. Hitaki Tsukumo, captain of an Umbu unit, and Aburame Toryun, captain of Root, have already set off. I believe with their strength, they will be able to rescue the princess. As for your mission, go to the 5 towns at the Land of Fire border respectively and stay there as reinforcement. After receiving the hostage, you'll escort the hostage together from the Land of Fire to the Land of Rivers. In this mission, saving the hostage is the top priority. As for your other 2 teammates, they are already waiting at the village's gate. When the time comes, you can just follow their instructions. Yes. Team 9 responded in unison and left the Hokage residence, heading towards the village gate.